Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Monday, November 16th, 2015. Here are our top stories.
Tonight, fact-checking the lies of the Democratic debate. Then, a look at nuclear preparedness in popular culture and how political correctness contributed to the Paris attacks. That's next.
And the system knows that the public is so politically ignorant and so politically dumbed down that when the very groups our governments have been funding attack us, the response won't be, hey, we should prosecute the politicians like Hillary Clinton that were neck deep in all this. Hey, we should have congressional hearings. Hey, we shouldn't have been doing this all along. Hey, we should be releasing the 28 pages of the 9/11 Commission. But instead, we're told the answer is take out Assad, who for 5. Clean, pure drinking water. You can't survive without it. But where do you get it? Alexa Pure Pro is a brand new, groundbreaking, gravity-fed water filtration system that is like no other. The Alexa Pure Pro transforms water from virtually any fresh source into clean, healthy drinking water, pairing the unprecedented superfiltration power of an all-new gravity block core with a hybrid chromatic shell. It removes up to 99.999% of impurities, including bacteria, viruses, fluoride, disinfectants, volatile organic contaminants, and hormones. Filter capacity up to 5,000 gallons. Stainless steel construction, easy assembly, low maintenance. Replacement filters are simple to install. And now, as part of an exclusive limited time introductory offer, you can save $20 off the retail price and get free shipping. This is a limited time offer, so order your unit today and receive free shipping and $20 off. Go to InfoWarsStore.com or call 888-253-3139.
Well, this was a busy weekend for news. Of course, we had the terrorist attacks in Paris. On Saturday, we had the Democrat debate. We're going to talk about what's going on in Paris with some new updates from our reporters who are there, as well as what is coming next in terms of the, as they break down and destroy Western civilization. Right at Paris, they're going to rebuild a new foundation for a world government. That's what they're going to do with the climate treaty that they're coming at in just 2 weeks in Paris. But let's go to the Democrat debate first. We had an article that was at the top of the Drudge Report today talking about how Hillary Clinton is often confused. Now, they got this from emails that were obtained by Judicial Watch with a Freedom of Information Act request. In these emails, one in particular is an exchange going back and forth between Huma Abedin, the close confidant of Hillary Clinton, saying that Hillary is often confused. And in the context, they were talking about how, have you been going over her calls with her? So she knows that she has to see the Indian Prime Minister at 8. She's got a call with him. And then Hanley comes back to Huma Abedin and says, well, she was in bed for a nap by the time I heard she had an 8 a.m. call. I'll go over that with her. Huma Abedin said, it's very important to do that. She is often confused. And we're going to see in this debate just how confused she gets about things like gun statistics. But there's other things that came out of these emails with a FOIA request from Judicial Watch. They say the Clinton top aide attempted to obtain special treatment from the State Department for business associates and relatives. Huma, how could you? Then also, Huma Abedin received emails from her mother, who is a controversial Islamicist activist. So we're going to talk about the Wall Street cronyism that we see in these emails, where they're getting special treatment from the State Department for business associates and relatives. We're also going to talk about how Islamic activists cannot be named by the candidates during the debate. All this came out during the debate. Now, the debate itself had very disappointing ratings. They had lost 7 million viewers from the last Democrat debate, which had not achieved the kind of viewership the Republican Party debates had. It's down 45% in this second debate. And they say that it was unprecedented, unilateral, and arbitrary the way the DNC chair determined this schedule. These are complaints from her opponents, from Governor O'Malley's deputy campaign manager. She said, it's clear we need to open up the process. We need to have more debates. We need to engage more voters in this process. Well, you understand that the debate schedule was set up precisely to keep any of that stuff from happening. They don't want you to vet the candidates, particularly Hillary Clinton. They want to coronate her through without any opposition from any other Democrat candidates, and they don't want the public to see her. We're going to take a look at some of the things that came up in the debate, because although the debate itself and the election itself is a very manipulated, very dishonest process, the way they count the votes as well, it's still important to see how they lie and to call them out on their lies, to see how they believe that they can get away not only with lying, but also, as we know in the case of the Clintons, with murder. Now, they point out that the next debates are going to be even less watched, because the next one that's coming up is a Saturday night before Christmas. Then they're going to have the Sunday night of the Martin Luther King Day weekend, which is going to also be during NFL playoffs. So they're not expecting to see many people tuning in to watch this. They point out the obvious again. A Democrat campaign says, look, there was a clear intent to bury these debates to the benefit of Hillary Clinton. Yeah, you can't have people seeing her lie. And of course, they even turned off the debate. It was such a snooze fest. They turned it off with 7 minutes to spare. But let's look at some of the things that came out here. Clearly, I don't think that Hillary Clinton was confused on the gun statistics that she put out. I think she was just flat out lying. And they point out in the Huffington Post, they say, apparently, if you're a Democrat presidential candidate, there's no longer such a thing as being too strict about gun safety. They were all trying to out-gun control each other. And this was the day after, remember, we had 120 plus people die, showing the futility of gun control in France. And they want to give us exactly that same type of system. Take away your right of self-defense. And of course, look at the way the tactics on how they approach this argument. That's why it's important to take a look at the debates. You see their tactics. You see how they're going to try to sell this to the public. And you have an opportunity to push back against these lies and distortions. Clinton called Bernie Sanders' vote in favor of the 2005 Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act a terrible mistake. Now, what does this do? This would shield manufacturers, distributors, and sellers of guns and ammunition from civil lawsuits when others are seeking damages, injunctive, or other relief resulting from the misuse of their products by others. You understand? Listen to that phrase there. The misuse of their products by others. Now, it doesn't matter if this is guns or if it's cars or whatever it is, okay? If it's the misuse of somebody's products by other people, there is no negligence there. Clinton understands that. She's a lawyer. She knows what negligence is. You're not negligent if you sell something to somebody and then somebody misuses it in a way to harm other people. If somebody takes a car made by Chevy and drives it into a crowd of people in a terrorist attack, you shouldn't be able to sue Chevy. And the liberals will say, well, guns were only meant to kill people. No, they were also meant to defend people. And there are innumerable and uncounted times that people have defended themselves without having to fire a shot at anyone. The mere presence of firearms deters that kind of activity. Now, they go on from there and they say, well, Sanders says, I don't think there's a disagreement in this, and because he wants to make himself appear to be in support of taking down the Second Amendment. O'Malley said that as well. O'Malley said, well, Hillary, you've been on all three sides of this. You portrayed yourself as Annie Oakley in 2008. I seem to have missed that when she was portraying herself as Annie Oakley. But nevertheless, I say, when O'Malley was parading about that, Sanders came back to O'Malley and he says, I think it's fair to say Baltimore is not now one of the safest cities in America. Well, of course it isn't. Anywhere where you enact rigid gun control, you are going to have more crime. We have seen that as a pattern. It's a very obvious pattern. Now, let's take a look at what she actually said, though. Here's the amazing thing that Hillary Clinton said. She said, since we last debated in Las Vegas, nearly 3,000 people have been killed by guns. Total lie. 200 children. Total lie. 21 mass shootings. Total lie. With 3 people killed. Total lie. Everything about that was a total lie. AP points that out in their fact check. And as a matter of fact, there weren't 21 mass shootings. There was 1 mass shooting, and that's the one she's talking about in Des Moines. And there weren't 3 people killed. There was 1 person killed. But let's take a look at the special treatment from State Department and business associates and realtors. Remember that was talked about in the email? Does that really happen? You know, Bernie Sanders was talking about how candidates are influenced when they take money. He says, yeah, everybody says they're not influenced by this when they take the money, but nevertheless, let's play this clip and see how Hillary reacts.
I represented New York, and I represented New York on 9/11. When we were attacked, where were we attacked? We were attacked in downtown Manhattan, where Wall Street is. I did spend a whole lot of time and effort helping them rebuild. That was good for New York, it was good for the economy, and it was a way to rebuke the terrorists who had attacked our country.
Well, he's talking about corruption. He's talking about people involved in crony capitalism, and Hillary immediately thinks he's talking about her. Why would she think that? She immediately says, essentially, I resemble that remark, and here's what she has to say.
John, wait a minute.
Personal
Look,
privilege.
He has basically used his answer to impugn my integrity. Let's be frank here. Oh, wait a minute, Senator. You know, not only do I have hundreds of thousands of donors, most of them small, and I'm very proud that for the first time, a majority of my donors are women, 60%.
Amazing, isn't it? She says she took the money from Wall Street so she could rebuke the terrorists of 9/11. No, you know what? Hillary wasn't representing the people of New York. She was representing Wall Street. And that's one of the most amazing pushbacks of people who are on the payroll of big money I've ever seen. Then they went from this and they said, well, who's a populist? And Bernie Sanders wanted to point out where he got his money from. Here's what he had to say.
This campaign contribution will not influence me. I'm going to be independent. Well, why do they make millions of dollars of campaign contributions? They expect to get something. Everybody knows that.
Now understand what's going on. Bernie is talking about how he gets his money from small donors like Ron Paul did, like Rand Paul and other candidates do. He says, we got $750,000 at $30 a piece. He said, that's who I'm indebted to. And hear the way that Hillary spins that. She says, well, I have a lot of women who support me. I have 100,000 women who have supported me. Well, that doesn't say anything. That's not a response. Does she have more women sending her money than Bernie Sanders does? Does she get more money from women than she does from Wall Street? And, you know, that doesn't even have any influence as to where does the money come from small donors? Well, AP looked at it in terms of fact checks. They pointed out that if you look at small donors, people who have given less than $200, Hillary's donors, that's only 17% of her donations, 17%. But Sanders, it accounts for 74%. So if you're looking at who the small donors are supporting, it's like 80% of the money of Bernie Sanders is coming from small donors, but only 28% of Hillary Clinton's donors. So they got the 80-20 rule exactly upside down. So yes, she is the candidate of big money. He does have smaller donors who are giving him money. Understand, too, that Hillary Clinton has just one super PAC alone that is expected to give her more than $100 million. She has 7 donors at least who have given her $1 million each. So if she's got 100,000 female donors that she points out, and of course it's only important if they're women, somehow that makes it more important. I'm a woman, I've got females who are giving me money. Well, let's say she has 100,000 women who are giving her $50, okay? That's $5 million, and that's not as much as 7 of these fat cats on Wall Street gave her. Then they go to who's a real socialist, and they asked Bernie Sanders, how high would you go on tax rates, Bernie, for all these programs that you want to do, all these giveaways? And he says this.
Well, let's get specific. How high would you go? You've said before you'd go above 50%. How high?
We haven't come up with an exact number yet, but it will not be as high as the number under Dwight D. Eisenhower, which was 90%. But it will be. I'm not that much of a socialist compared to Eisenhower.
So isn't that amazing? He says, well, I don't really know yet. I haven't come up with the numbers yet. Just typical socialist, isn't it? They have no idea how much this is going to cost. They just promise people the world. But then he comes back and he said something very amazing. He says, oh, it'll probably be less than 90% because I'm not as much of a socialist as Eisenhower. Let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at the data as to the data rates. And of course, O'Malley chimed in and said, well, Ronald Reagan, he had 70% tax rates. That's an outright lie as well. And of course, CBS and AP let him get away with that. Because you have to understand that when you look at these rates, what were the rates when somebody came into office and what were the rates when they came out? Who's the real socialist? Was it Eisenhower? Was it Reagan? Was it maybe FDR, the hero of all the socialists? Let's take a look at the minimum rates when FDR started and when he ended, okay? When he began, there was a 4% rate that kicked in at $70,000. And these are all figures that are adjusted to 2013. So these are constant dollars. This is in 2013 dollars. And this is for married filing jointly. So 4% and $70,000 when FDR comes in. That's the minimum rates that are there. What he did was he raised that 4% to 24%, and he had it kick in at $24,000. And they created an incredible number of rates there as well. But let's look at the other minimum rates. Now, when Eisenhower started in 1953, the rate had gone down slightly to 22%. And they had dropped the starting rate for that down to $17,000. At the end of his administration, 1961, the rate was about the same, but they had increased it a little bit in terms of where that rate was going to kick in. You had to get to 30.7 thousand before that 20% rate came in. Now, when Reagan started in 1981, there was a 0% tax rate until you got to $8,000 a year. And then when he ended, that rate was 15%, but they raised the level up to 57%. So even though he raised the rate for people who are making less than $8,000, it had a huge effect on the middle class. We'll take a look at that again. But let's first look at the maximum rates, because that's the 90% rate that he was talking about. When FDR started in 1933, the maximum rate was 63%, and you had to have an income of $17.5 million to get 63%. But at the end in 1945, FDR had raised the rates to 94%, and he had lowered it to $2.5 million. Still pretty high income rate. That essentially stayed with Eisenhower. It was 92% when he began and 91% when it ended. And again, they raised that bracket a little bit from 1.7 million to 3 million. When Reagan began, it was a 70% tax racket at the beginning of $500,000, okay? Now, they lowered that to 28% for everybody making $57,000 and above. Understand that when you look at these brackets, and this is what we need to understand, FDR went from 55 brackets when he took office to 24, and he raised taxes considerably, especially at the higher end. Eisenhower kept those same 24 brackets and had about the same distribution in terms of tax rates. Reagan, however, had 16 brackets when he took office, and when he finished, he had 2 brackets. If you made less than $57,000, you had a 15% tax bracket. If you made more than $57,000, you had a 28% tax bracket. A huge decrease in taxes, and we can see this if we look at the median family tax rate. Look at what the median family is making, and again, this is in current dollars, $51.9 thousand. Under FDR, he taxed the families. There was 4% when he came in, but he raised it to 29%. Good socialist, isn't he? Reagan dropped them from 28% to 15% for the median family income. The socialist raises it from 4 to 29%. That's what they do for you. When we come back, we're going to talk about what real socialism looks like. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is an American president. Just add puppet, then vote and repeat every 4 years.
Shane Steiner's involvement with InfoWarsLife.com truly happened in an organic way. I went to high school with Shane, his brother, knew his parents well, and he was visiting the office once, hadn't been to the office in years, and said, wow, I notice you're making and selling supplements. Do these really work? Because I've tried a lot of supplements as a workout enthusiast, and I really think most of them are hype. And I said, here, take some home, try it. Well, a few weeks later, he came in blown away and said, I want to buy 3 boxes of this stuff to give my friends and family. It's simply amazing. He said, why does it work so well? And I said, listen, go to InfoWarsLife.com, watch the informational videos with Dr. Group and others. They understand how it all works. I know that it works for me. That's all I understand. The science, the facts, the research, people's testimonials, they're all on InfoWarsLife.com. You can check it out for yourself.
I wanted to go to the gym. I wanted to push myself and work out harder. And that led to me being able to come out and do stuff like the barefooting and the surfing and stuff like that, which I would have never done. I never would have done that 2 years ago.
Shane has said over and over again, more than just libido and energy, it made him want to get into the gym more. It made him want to get in better shape. And believe me, the Steiners have amazing genetics. His brother is a world champion steer wrestler. His dad, Bobby Steiner, is a famous world champion bull rider. They've got natural genetics. But when you added this to the mix, in Shane's own words, it took him to the next level. Shane noticed the mental clarity. Bobby was able to work out longer and gain muscle mass. He's already completely shredded. I gotta admit, for me, the biggest effect has been libido. Now, I've never claimed to have a body like some beach model, but back when I was 20, 22 years old and worked out every day, I looked great. But over the years, and being married, having 3 kids, and working 18 hours a day, I gained basically 100 pounds. And it's been a long process losing that weight in the last 4 years. But if you look at the photos and the videos of what I looked like 4 or 5 years ago versus today, the results are dramatic. I'd already cleaned up my diet, I was working out hard, but I'd only lost about 20 pounds. It was adding the other key ingredients from InfoWarsLife.com that helped me personally go to the next level and shed another 35 pounds.
This has actually made me feel so good that here lately, about a year ago, I started training jiu-jitsu, and that kind of led to doing some boxing and kickboxing. I mean, it's amazing that 2 years ago, I was on the couch and couldn't even tie my shoes, and now I'm training with MMA fighters and just doing stuff that I never thought that I would be doing ever again. So Super Male Vitality has allowed me to do some amazing things, and if it has those kind of effects for me, I know that it will do great things for you. So just try Super Male Vitality. I promise you, you'll love it.
And finally, let's look at Anthony Gucciardi, Infowars.com reporter. He also works with Dr. Group and others, helping develop the newest, most cutting-edge, high-quality supplements. Let's take a look at what happened when he tried to barefoot ski for the first time with the Steiners. And remember, we're not making fun of him. He had the will to get in the arena, and he's lost more than 10 pounds in the last few years of fat and gained more than 10 pounds of muscle. And Anthony chalks it up to Super Male Vitality as well. Bottom line, folks, you want to discover the power of Super Male Vitality and Super Female Vitality for yourself by visiting InfoWarsLife.com today or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.
Again, as we finished up in the last segment, we were talking about how the Democrats in the debate on Saturday lied and misrepresented who was a socialist and what the tax rates were. Again, Bernie Sanders saying, I wouldn't go as high as 90%. I'm not as much of a socialist as Eisenhower. Well, we looked at the rates at the beginning of the Eisenhower administration as well as the Reagan administration and the real socialist in the room, FDR. And the reality is that the rates that you attribute to somebody like Reagan, as O'Malley said, they were 70%. That's what he began with. He ended with the highest rate of 28%. Only 2 brackets, either 15% or 28%, and the median family income was in that lower bracket. So I want to go back and take a look real quickly before we move on. Who is the socialist? Who raised taxes most on the people who had a median family income? Today, again, in today's dollars, $51,900. If we look at FDR, he started in 1933 with a 4% tax rate on the median family home and ended up with a 29% tax rate. Huge tax increase. And understand that FDR also introduced Social Security. Incredibly regressive taxes for those of you who want to call yourself progressives. The people who are making less than $100,000 pay all of those taxes, and it's a 15% tax on their cost to the employer. They only see half of it come out of their paycheck. That's the other part of the lies underlying socialism. Now, Eisenhower, he began with a tax on the family, the median family, of 34%, but he ended with a 22% tax rate on that family. Again, taxes went down under Eisenhower. Not a socialist, Bernie, not a socialist, 34% to 22%. Reagan, he began with a 28% tax, that's what he inherited, a 28% tax on the median family income, and he ended up with a 15% tax on the median family income. Cut it in half. There you go. That's the real socialism. Let's take a look, too, at Nicaragua. You know, Bernie Sanders loves the Nicaraguan people. Remember that tape that came out in 1985? I call him Bernie Sandernista because he loved Daniel Ortega so much. Well, it's the Nicaraguans now are telling Cubans that they can't migrate into their country. Not even if they're on their way to America for the pot of gold. No, you can't pass through communist, socialist Nicaragua. They say Nicaragua dispatched its military and its police to help close its border as a dispute with Costa Rica over Cuban migrants fueled tensions between the two nations. They're ready to go to war with Costa Rica because Costa Rica is allowing Cuban migrants to pass through their country and into Nicaragua on their way to America to get the free goodies. Costa Rica decided to grant 7-day transit visas to 1,100 Cuban migrants. And then the Nicaraguans said, that violates our national sovereignty. National sovereignty, imagine that. that antiquated notion. The Nicaraguan government then said that they would use troops and riot police, and they launched tear gas at the people attempting to enter their country on Sunday. The number of Cubans seeking to migrate to the U.S. has spiked since the two countries began working in December of last year to normalize relations after more than 5 decades. 28,000 Cubans have entered the U.S., and they say the Cuban migrants have historically used Central America as a land bridge to the United States. Again, Bernie Sanders, who wants open borders, Bernie Sanders, who thinks that the Nicaraguan Sandinistas, and again, we've talked about how Daniel Ortega was nothing but a kleptocrat thrown out by a coalition of conservatives and communists. He was nothing but a common thief. You want to talk about crony capitalists? You want to understand how real socialism works? Take a look at Nicaragua, the idols of Bernie Sanders. And we should be concerned about what's going on in our open borders. Just look at what ISIS is saying about Europe, bragging about the fact that they now have 4,000 covert ISIS gunmen. Is that an exaggeration? There have been over 5 million migrants brought in, most of them in the age, men in military age in their 20s to mid 30s. If you only had 1/10 of 1%, that would be 5,000 ISIS people, okay? Understand that if you've got 99.9% of the people coming in that are just coming in because they want more money or because they maybe are truly refugees, even if 99.9% of them are okay, that 0.1% would still give you over 5,000 terrorists being let into the country by the open borders of the globalists. And in response to this, even France is saying, well, we need to rethink this. They want a suspension, not a termination, but a suspension of the Schengen open borders. And of course, this is the accord that was reached in the Luxembourg town of Shenzhen, saying that they were going to have no internal borders. And this is essentially the same thing that we have in the United States. You don't have to go through border control if you pass from Texas to Oklahoma. Well, there you don't have to have it within this zone, this internal zone, and that is most of the European states. So you can go from Italy to France and not have to go through customs or border checks as you did before. But the French say, no, we need to crack down on this free movement in and around Europe. They want this shut down, as well as saying that they want to enact some kind of an emergency enactment for the next 3 months. Of course, that's not going to stop the climate change summit that's coming up in 2 weeks. Same thing is happening in America. Some governors are halting the acceptance of Syrian refugees. The AP reports that several U.S. governors are threatening to halt efforts to allow Syrian refugees into their states in the aftermath of the Paris attacks, though an immigration expert says they have no legal authority to do so. Oh, really? Well, where does the president get his legal authority to say that he's not going to enforce any of the immigration laws, that he's not going to patrol the border, that he's not going to deport people who are here illegally? Where does the president get his authority to do that? No, that will be done. It will be done by some of the senators who have a strong will, like Texas, by governors, rather, like Texas Governor Abbott. People like Paul Ryan, however, favor legal status for immigrants, the same immigrants that Donald Trump wants to return home. They say House Speaker Paul Ryan said he supports allowing undocumented immigrants, in other words, illegal immigrants, to remain in the U.S. without gaining citizenship, although he doesn't believe in mass deportation. In other words, he wants people to get legal status but not be citizens. You understand, of course, this is absolute and total nonsense. There's no way that somebody who has legal status in the United States is going to be living here, working here, and the Democrats are rightfully going to say, you got taxation without representation. Because the whole purpose, from the Democrat standpoint, the immediate purpose for them is to get more Democrat voters. This will never last. They will call these people disenfranchised, second-class citizens, even though they're not given citizenship status. They will push to move this to the next step. That is simply a beard being put out there by Paul Ryan. Now, on the 14th, the day after these attacks, you had the foreign policy honchos from all these different countries, the United States, from Russia, as well as the head of the EU, meeting in Vienna, talking about how they were going to stop the Syrian war. And of course, they began talking about terrorism at the same time. This agreement that they came up with is total BS. But the statements that they made are very telling as to what is behind this. Now, of course, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry was there, as well as Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Sergei Lavrov said the Paris attacks show that it doesn't matter if you're for Assad or you're against him. ISIS is your enemy. No, what it shows is, and he was very clever to do that. It's very clever to say, you know, we don't need to worry about Assad. We need to understand that the real enemy is ISIS, because when he's saying that, he's pointing out that the United States and Europe are not opposing the real enemy. And this is something that has been going on for quite some time. Take a look. Going back to July of this year, we had an article on Infowars.com. New evidence revealed the Turkish government was directly funding ISIS. And they pointed out that the oil that was flowing between ISIS and Turkey was tremendous amount of money that was going between $1 and $4 million per day. And when they came after Abu Saif at that period of time, they obtained a lot of flash drives, and documents were seized showing that there were clear links between Turkey and ISIS. Today, Putin at the G20 meeting pointed out that there are 40 countries, including, he said, very obliquely, G20 members. He said, I provided examples based on our data on the financing of different Islamic State units by private individuals. The money, as we have established, comes from 40 countries. There are some G20 members among them. So he's not naming names, but he goes on to say, we need to have support from the U.S., from European nations, from Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Iran to oppose ISIS, and we're not getting that support. And we all know that those nations are supporting ISIS. They're not supporting the fight against ISIS. They are supporting ISIS. We know this from the documents in Turkey. You can see, if you look at the map, the territories that ISIS holds, those are flowing down from Turkey down into Syria. That's what the real struggle is. And yet they will not admit that that's what the real struggle is. At that meeting, the head of the European unions, the chief diplomat at that meeting, Federica Mogherini, said, let me underline that the profile of the terrorists so far identified tells us that this is an internal threat. We have to solve this by coming together and creating a global solution. And the global solution that they're going to come up with on the ruins of Paris is going to be this climate change accord. That is where they construct the New World Government. Stay with us. When we come back, we're going to have reports from our reporters in Paris. We'll be right back.
Dr. Group joins us for the balance of this hour to talk about solutions. We have them up every couple of weeks. We have been trying to launch this for the last year. We got all of the organic ingredients to do it. And we've come up with a new Living Defense Harmful Organism Cleansing dietary supplement, and it is extremely affordable. It is brimming with the capsules. And the way I read the facts, this could do a cleanse for really a family of 4 or 5 people. Dr. Group, let's just get into the product now and then into parasites themselves, what folks really want to hear about in the next segment. But thank you for developing this for InfoWarsLife.com. Tell us about Living Defense and why it's so special.
Well, it's really special because it's part of the problem that we're dealing with today. When the earth becomes sick and the earth soils become acidic and the internal bodies become acidic because of all the toxic food in the air and the beverages that people are consuming, it sets up an environment that's ripe for harmful organisms to live, either on the earth. That's why a lot of the plants are infested with harmful organisms, or inside the body. And years ago, we linked every single disease process to an overgrowth of organisms in the body. And when people hear the word parasite, which the FDA does not like us to use, they actually came down on us and made us take the word parasite off everywhere, because we were exposing what the globalists have been doing, spreading these parasites and creating this environment, which is great for them to live in for years and years and years, because they know they drain us of energy, they make us sick. So we had to actually change the word parasite to harmful organism. And when we talk about harmful organisms, it's the definition, actually, the medical definition of parasite is any harmful organism that lives off of a host mechanism. Most people just think parasites are worms, but harmful organisms are bacteria, viruses that you can get through flu shots, funguses, yeast. We literally have an epidemic going on right now with molds and fungus and yeast living in everybody's body.
This is something when I heard about over a decade ago, I didn't really believe. I did one of these cleanses or invasive organism or harmful organism cleanses. It really hurt a lot, but it did do a lot. With this was not painful like some other cleanses I've done. The product is available at InfoWarsLife.com. I've always read and heard that just one of the ingredients, black walnuts, is really good at flushing parasites, and that, animals out in the fields eat them and stuff to naturally do this. We do cleanses on our dogs, our cats, our horses, our cows. Why not us?
Well, because they don't want you to know about that you need to do a parasite or a harmful organism cleanse. That's the thing. It's so secretive. And when we were doing our research into the root cause of every single disease, there's been plenty of proof.
The statistics are clear. 9 out of 10 people are infested with harmful organisms like parasites. Parasites can be transmitted by people, pets, food, and the environment, and so many other sources. Once parasites have made it inside your body, they steal your nutrients and release toxic waste. They use the bathroom inside of you. It's time to start eliminating toxic and harmful organisms from your body. Introducing Living Defense, the new harmful organism cleanser by InfoWarsLife.com. Living Defense uses wild-crafted organic herbs to help naturally cleanse harmful organisms from the body. We are expected to sell out of this very, very quickly. This is our limited first-time run. So visit InfoWarsLife.com today to try Living Defense today while supplies last.
Joe Biggs here with Infowars.com. Now we're standing right down the street from the Bataclan Theater where Friday a terrorist attack took place, taking the lives over 100 people and injuring over 300. And as you can see, they have this area behind me blocked off. There's been a memorial set up. Now today, the French Interior Minister says police raided 168 locations last night across the country. French police conducted the raids overnight as authorities released the names of 2 more potential suicide bombers involved in the Paris attack, one born in Syria, the other a Frenchman wanted as part of a terrorism investigation. Now the raids came as the hunt continued for members of the sleeper cell that carried out last Friday's gun and bomb attacks right behind me here at the Bataclan Theater. The French Prime Minister, Manuel Valls, said Monday, "We are at war." Now, in those raids, the mastermind behind the Paris attacks has been identified as active ISIS executioner from Belgium. Investigators have identified the alleged sponsor and mastermind of Friday's massacre in Paris. He had direct contact with the terrorists and a media report. The suspect is believed to be a Belgian national and an active Islamic State executioner in Syria. His name is Abdelhamid Aboud. He was 27 years old. He financed and organized the attacks and the explosions in the French capital. The report adds that the butcher of the Islamic State group had carried out several grisly executions. And if you want, here is a picture of him right there. Now, he is said to be from Brussels area, and that's where a lot of the raids were going on as well. Over the night and through the weekend. We'll keep you updated as information comes to us. Stay tuned for more reports at Infowars.com. I'm Joe Biggs. Joe Biggs here with Infowars.com. Now we're standing outside of the Bataclan Theater where the attacks took place this past Friday. We know that over 100 people were killed and over 350 or so were wounded. This is one of the smaller memorials outside of the theater. And there are thousands of people gathered out here today, lighting candles, bringing flowers out to this memorial that has been staged up over here. Now the actual area is roped off for quite a few blocks up and down the road over here. And you can see all the people gathered around that are placing things out here at the memorial. But the French Prime Minister has come out today and warns the people of France to stay vigilant, that they expect there to be more attacks. And when you hear something like that, and then you see something like this, from a military standpoint, that's pretty scary. There's a lot of people, thousands of people gathered in one spot. All it would take is for one of these crazy nut jobs to come by with a car bomb or something like that and get 10 times the amount of numbers that they did on the last one. So this is the scary fact, to see all that, that many people gathered in one area. They need to disperse and move around, understand that they want to lay stuff down, but this is only going to look like a better target for these guys if they intend to do something else. So stay tuned for more reports from France. I'm Joe Biggs with Infowars.com.
It's Paul Joseph Watson with Infowars.com in Paris, France, in the aftermath of the massacre which took place just 48 hours ago. And of course, the big story to emerge out of this whole incident is the fact that at least one, if not two, of the attackers were found with a Syrian passport. They arrived in Greece as part of the migrant wave that we've been warning about for months will lead to these kind of attacks happening in major European cities. And of course, ISIS themselves said that they would infiltrate Europe with this wave of refugees. So now we get the backlash, the justification. The president of the EU Commission, Carl Juncker, has come out and said that even though this is the case, that they abuse the system, which we've been warning about for months would happen, they're not going to change the policy. So these waves of hundreds of thousands of migrants are going to continue to pour into the country. We've got Obama, who came out in September, said that America would accept 100,000 of these refugees. We had Hillary Clinton in the debates last night saying that America should accept these refugees when it's directly led to this attack. So now we get the left-wing backlash, the justification, which is, even though this is proven, this is a direct connection, we're going to continue with the policy anyway. Despite top French security experts and experts in Germany too, saying that this is going to lead not only to more attacks but to civil unrest. So we've been proven right, this is a major issue, and now we're getting the backlash, which is, don't worry about it, it's all fine, they're going to come in anyway, we're going to vet them, and they're not vetting them. So we've got all these countries. Poland has stood up and said, no, we're not going to take any more refugees, and that is the lone voice of sanity in Europe. So for the people who thought that this whole narrative would change, that the insanity of Merkel in Germany, her mass immigration open border policy, would stop as a result of this attack and potential attacks in future, that's not going to happen now, because they're still sticking to their guns, and they will have blood on their hands. They've already got blood on their hands for this attack, and in future they will have blood on their hands for more attacks in major European cities, because now it's proven, even though they say, oh, the passport was stolen, it doesn't matter that it was stolen. It doesn't matter that the individual who carried out the attacks maybe came from Belgium, maybe came from France. They stole a passport, they posed as a Syrian refugee to get into the country, and that partly led to the massacre that followed. And yet this insane policy that European leaders are following is going to continue, and we need to continue to speak out against that and basically make the point that if you invite hordes of these people into the country, even though the vast majority of them are fleeing here for economic reasons, some of them are fleeing from ISIS, there will be that small contingent which are radicalized, which are jihadists, and they will carry out attacks. So that is the major story to emerge so far out of this incident, out of this massacre, and we'll have more reports coming soon at Infowars.com.
Joe Biggs here with Infowars.com. Now we're standing underneath the Eiffel Tower. Now this place has been closed down today due to a possible terrorist threat. Now also earlier they had evacuated the Eiffel Tower and nearby areas due to a bomb alert, which has now come out as false. But police search a nearby hotel room by room after closing the Champs de Mars underground station. The area around the Eiffel Tower has been evacuated and is heavily armed by police. And we've seen that right over here. There's a couple guys that came out actually when Mike was going through his bag right here. We're pulling out the camera equipment. The police or military, whatever they were, it's hard to tell. They came by with their guns and they were watching us with the bag right here. And if you come over here and look, it says right here, For security reasons, the Eiffel Tower is closed today, so we cannot welcome any customers. So that's something that's going on here. Threat level still high here in Paris. We're going to continue bringing you guys reports and breaking down everything that we've seen and helping uncover what's going on with this attack, what it means, and the fact that our government is nonstop pushing for wide open borders. And what we've seen in the attack on Friday the 13th is that when you open your borders and you let people through, you don't know who's coming through. You don't know who's good. You don't know who's bad. That's why you have to have a border. That's why it needs to be secure. And you've got to have different standards and practices of finding out who's who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, and eliminating the threat. And as you can see, when you have wide open borders and you allow refugees to flood in and you don't know who's coming through, these ISIS guys are taking advantage of that situation, and they're using those migrant routes, and they're coming in and carrying out these terrorist activities and killing tons of people. We need to stop this. We need to nip it in the bud. We need to make sure that people in Washington understand that this is something that's not just going to be happening in Paris. One day it will happen on U.S. soil. So stay tuned for more reports at Infowars.com. I'm Joe Biggs.
And all you ISIS people threatening us, hey, we're not a French newspaper, okay? We got people that have taken your asses out in this building right now. We're armed to the teeth, and we're not scared. You got that, you sons of bitches? This is Texas. You want to threaten me, you can go straight to hell. You understand that?
Never water yourself down just because someone can't handle you at 100 proof. It's the Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
I began to get into iodine a few years ago because it was helping me and my family so much get healthy and detoxify. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. And I know this for a fact. Nobody else has got iodine based on these pure crystals, ladies and gentlemen. For a limited time, experience the ancient power of Survival Shield X2. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. Take advantage of this at InfoWarsLife.com.
And why wearing a Hillary for President t-shirt might get you punched in the face.
They thought it said Hillary for president. He said, I was seconds away from sending my bar back over here to punch you in the face. Since you're wearing a Hillary for prison shirt, you don't have to buy drinks here. Everything's on the house.
Hillary for president! Hillary's not surging, I tell you that. They're not saying that. They're not saying that. Thank you.
There you have it. Donald Trump endorses Hillary for prison. Get your Hillary for Prison 2016 t-shirt at the Infowars store. And on the back, it says, legalize freedom. Show your disapproval of Hillary by buying your t-shirt today.
But what she's done is criminal.
This is an American president. Just add puppet, then vote and repeat every 4 years.
There was a turtle by the name of Bert, and Bert the turtle was very alert. When danger threatened him, he never got hurt. He knew just what to do. He ducked and cover, ducked and cover.
He did what we all must learn to do. You
and you
and you
and you, duck and cover.
Welcome back. Of course, that was a propaganda film from the 1950s, and joining me now is Leanne McAdoo. We're going to talk about modern day propaganda. Leanne, I remember that from when I was a child, the Cuban Missile Crisis and things like that. That was, even as a child, and I guess that's when I started mistrusting the government.
Right.
When I knew as a child it wasn't going to do me any good to stick my head in a desk.
Right.
Okay, that's what they were telling us. Stick your head in a desk. And we were joking at schools like, so what? For our dental records? I mean, it wasn't even plausible to elementary school students. You know, I guess it's a way of telling the American public, if we launch the missiles, you can go to Shell.
Yeah, kiss your butt goodbye. Exactly. And it seems like that's still sort of the plan, the nuclear preparedness plan. They really don't have one for the majority of American people. It really is up to us, up to everyone worldwide to prepare themselves. And so now, of course, we've moved away from propagandizing through cartoons. Now we're moving into video games. And so Fallout 4, there's a lot of excitement. This is a post-nuclear war game, Fallout 4. And a lot of people are really excited about it. And this is modern day nuclear preparedness propaganda. This is actually helping you essentially psychologically prepare yourself and kind of have
who's to worry about that? I mean, you know, it's the American public, just like the Mark Dice video, the American public got, let's launch nuclear weapons on Russia. And the Russians, who have actually experienced a massive war on their soil within the previous generation, they're like, are you crazy? Are you absolutely insane? And of course, the American people are insane.
Right, and even just, you know, seeing what happened with Chernobyl and everything.
Yeah.
So now this particular video game, Fallout 4, the makers of the game actually commissioned research to make this game and the survivability of it as accurate as possible. And so a lot of people, you can learn some things from it. But interestingly, the American Chemical Society put out a video of their own challenging this notion that the human race could survive just living inside of these vaults if there's some type of a nuclear explosion. And the video is called How to Survive Real Life Fallout, Bunker Essentials. And I thought it was a pretty, you know, it's pretty informative video.
Dr. Strangelove, do they have clips of Dr. Strangelove in there?
It's good. It kind of simplifies things. And I know a lot of people out there are really interested in preparedness and, you know, making sure that you do have bunker essentials. And so it pretty much tells you that surviving nuclear fallout is a lot more difficult than fiction would have you believe.
Yeah, there was an interesting British cartoon, and it was an older couple, and nuclear war breaks out. And they go out and they get the government handsheets about what to do next. It's called When the Wind Blows, I think. And it was absolutely absurd. It's like, well, gee, darling, it says to do this, so you must do that. You know, you watch them slowly die in this car. It's a very dark comedy.
Right.
Because that's what the government is telling us. They want us to believe that we can survive this stuff, that there's not much of a risk. Saw this back in the Cold War as the Pentagon's Brain, the book about DARPA, talks about how we had no civil defense shelters. And when they brought this up in Congress, they said, well, what do we do? They said, well, just get out of the cities. And it's like, well, what if the bomb hits while we're in the city? Just get in a ditch beside the road. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Are you insane? Yeah. Well, we can put some stuff out. Maybe we'll put some concrete cylinders out there that people can crawl into.
Right. And hopefully you'll have enough food in your car or wherever that you can fend off the rest of humanity that's hiding inside of these tubes with you. And that's just it. It's there really aren't any preparations out there for the mass of society, and they're not going to give us really any warning of something like this going off. So this video kind of explains sort of how to survive, get the food, clothing, shelter, things that you need to really give yourself a chance of survival here. In particular, they say the key to survival is time, distance, and shelter. And they say if you hold your thumb out in front of you, if you see a mushroom cloud and you hold your thumb like that, if the cloud is bigger than your thumb, you're in the radiation zone.
You're done.
Get lost, evacuate, or you know, which kind of, if you think of those pictures of the family that was kicked off the Area 51.
Yeah.
And they were standing right there in front of the mushroom cloud with their coffee and, you know, just really
no warning.
frightening.
See, that's just, they wouldn't even give a family that was right next to their test area in Nevada. They wouldn't even give them a warning. They're not going to give you a warning. That's why you have to stop this. They have to stop these geopolitical games, these Henry Kissinger, Dr. Strangelove games, Zbigniew Brzezinski, what they're planning to do. We have to stop it before they do this, because it is going to be gigadeath once this happens.
No, absolutely. And so, you know, for me, just watching all the daily headlines and just seeing, I sense that they really are prepping us by not prepping us, but just dropping little clues in the daily news. Hey, you know, we told you nuclear war was coming, you know, Business Insider.
Psychologically anesthetizing us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, they can say, well, we told you all of the billionaires were buying bunkers. We were saying it was for civil unrest or for the zombie apocalypse, ha ha ha, you know, kind of a tongue-in-cheek sort of thing there. They even have those zombie preparedness drills with the Department of Homeland Security. But the elites are getting their bunkers ready.
Yeah, you should have bought your own island in the southern hemisphere. We warned you.
Right, but there are very simple things that we can do, and to do them right now. And I know that your sons are working on aquaponic systems and things like that. Obviously, having certain things that would help you to fix your irradiated water.
Certain things like
graphene oxide.
Yeah, earth bermed concrete and rebar enforced shelters, domes, things like that you can get, and that would be something that's effective. If you're not at ground zero, it's very effective, but also you're going to cover these earth bermed shelters with several feet of dirt, so that can be a shelter from the radiation, but you still have to have your means to grow food and that sort of thing internally in it.
And they say fuel cells are probably the best source of energy because they produce heat and water as well as electricity. But the reason why I just wanted to kind of bring this up, obviously fallout for the release of it is, it's a great timely opportunity for us to talk about this stuff. But I mean, just look at some of the headlines. We saw just last month or earlier this month with the Navy launching their nuclear missiles right off the coast of California at the maximum exposure time that everyone would see it, not just as a warning to China or Russia, but to the American people as well, because it went viral on social media. So they're testing. Oh, we do that all the time. Our
government is ramping up the second Cold War, and they make no bones about it, and they want us to feel the burn, feel the pain.
You say Lindsey Graham, right?
Yeah.
Nuclear war.
Yeah.
So nuclear war between India and Pakistan is a very real possibility. North Korea is prepping for their nuclear test. And in March, Business Insider reported about the world facing a growing threat of nuclear war. This is, of course, as we're working on this Iran nuclear deal where people are saying, okay, I get it, but after 2025, Iran will gradually be allowed to expand its effort. And, they have already said death to America. And so right now we have a lot of rogue regimes that are getting these nuclear capabilities. Perhaps they could fall into the hands of these jihadists. We don't know. And so we're now having to start preparing our own nuclear arsenal. The White House asked Congress for almost $350 billion to undertake this decade-long program to upgrade our nuclear arsenal, as we're telling everyone else that they need to dismantle theirs. They're saying that North Korea could be capable of adding a warhead each year to their already suspected 10 nuclear warheads, and they're working on one specifically that will reach the west coast of the United States. Obviously, Russia, their defense budget has grown by over 50% since 2007, with a third of that devoted to nuclear weapons. And then here we have a president who continues to poke Russia and not work alongside of them.
Exactly.
So this is,
we combine that with the fact that the American government is still the only government to have used nuclear weapons on anyone. I mean, we haven't seen the North Koreans, as crazy as that guy is. He hasn't attacked anybody with nuclear weapons yet.
Right.
Why is that? I mean, we are the people who have done that, and we're the people, as you point out, who are poking the Russians, who are trying to start a Cold War because it benefits the military-industrial complex. They can make a lot of money out of this perpetual, infinite war on terror.
Yeah.
But for the really big ticket items that they look for nostalgically, the massive strategic bombers, that's what they need a Cold War for. So that's what they're pushing us for. Thank you so much, Leanne. That's what we have to be concerned about. Of course, that's it for tonight's Nightly News. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to Prison Planet TV. Your subscription helps to pay for our operation here. It also helps us to send reporters to places like Paris, as Joe Biggs and Paul Joseph Watson are there right now. It's a very expensive thing to do. It's also an expensive thing to run our satellite operation. So we would appreciate your support, and join us again tomorrow night at 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Knockout is back. If you want a product that has 10 known ingredients that naturally get your body to relax, your brain to relax, so you get deep, restful sleep, Knockout's it. InfoWarsLife.com. L-theanine, hops flower extract, lemon balm extract, valerian root extract, chamomile flower extract, L-tryptophan extract, melatonin, and more. All organic, all the natural sources. It's the same price as leading brands of melatonin that are 3 milligrams a piece. It has 3 milligram, the standard recommended dose for an adult. It's got the GABA. So it would probably cost $50 to take all this as separate pills. It's $19.95. You take one or two of these, and it just is really clean, restful sleep is what the reviews are. It's what I've experienced. And it just synergistically puts everything in there. Infowarslife.com. That's Infowarslife.com. Or call 888-253-3139.
You are watching the Infowars Nightly News, which airs 7 p.m. Central at Infowarsnews.com. And your support is helping us defend liberty worldwide.